Hi, thanks for coming by. I'm showing off the final iteration, very close to the final iteration. I'll never stop evolving, for the Orca carbon fiber hybrid ukulele. Uh, to go over the salient features real quickly, the top is hand laid carbon fiber right here in the shop. We start out with fabric and a marine grade of epoxy and vacuum bag the carbon fiber. There is carbon fiber rib V bracing underneath this top. Some of you may remember that I started out with a completely unbraced top. A lot of people loved it. I didn't. The reason being that the sound was a little unfocused and I wasn't hearing what I wanted to hear in the way of separation of strings in the strum. It was a bit mushy for me, and this brings out much more in the way of focus separation. The other change is the back, neck, and back of the peg box are all formed of one piece from ABS. ABS is this really incredibly tough stuff. I had to learn how to use this stuff and form it, but I'm really happy with it. The back of the instrument has an X bracing pattern, again with carbon fiber fabricated ribs, and that brought about a tap tone that I had been looking for a while. Well, we still have a lot of resonance in the body. It's quite lightweight. The top is really very thin, as you may be able to see. So we have lots of resonant activity in the top now, even though we have bracing in the top. The neck on this instrument, all the way up to the top of the peg head, is filled with a mixture of epoxy and phenolic micro balloons, which is a lightweight filler material. And that gives it an approximate mass in comparison to wood. And the reason for this is, as some of you know, I started out making an instrument like others on the market with a hollow neck, because this mode of construction makes that entirely possible, and a sound port in the top. And I just didn't like it. It sounded weird to me. I couldn't make myself be happy with it, even though it was cool. So I'm quite happy with this solution, and the mass of the neck has something to do with the sound of the sound chamber. Now, I didn't really want to believe that for a while, because you've got hold of this thing with your hand all the time. But there really is a physical effect, and so sort of tuning the mass of the neck impacts the resonances inside the chamber. The atypical thing about this particular instrument is this rosette, which I actually put into the laminate layup of the carbon fiber as a bright idea, and it turned out to be incredibly fussy because of air bubbles and other things. This one is perfectly sound, looks nice, and I won't be doing it again. I might do some sort of decorative rosette applied to the top, and we'll see how that turns out. This instrument has a side sound port, sometimes called the self-monitor. I like what that does to the overall resonance in the instrument. It doesn't just give you the ability to hear yourself better when you're playing, but it also changes what's called the Helmholtz response of the main sound port into something that's a little more pleasing. The bridge in this instrument is a traditional knotted style of bridge. Some of you will remember I started out with a pass through the top kind of bridge with a bead tied on, and I just found them too fussy to live with. You can have the strings on and off this instrument very quickly, and the pass-through bridge is, from an engineering perspective, a better solution. But if you want to change out strings, if you're experimenting with strings, as I often do, it's a fussy bit of thing to deal with. This instrument is strung up with a low G. I do that for my own particular purposes because when I'm prototyping and assessing instruments, I can hear the low end and what that's doing, and then the A string gives me a sense of what the high end is doing. They sound great strung up with a more traditional reentrant high G kind of string, and that of course is available. The saddle and nut are genuine bone. I tried some synthetic materials for those, didn't like any of them compared to genuine bone, so that's what I've gone back to. The tuners on this instrument are friction tuners. I personally prefer friction tuners for their simplicity. I find them easy to adjust. I find that they hold tune quite well, particularly if you carry a little Phillips screwdriver around in your bag to adjust them. But of course we can put on any kind of tuners you like. There are many interesting, fine, geared, not a player. Well, I am a little bit of a player. But we will be making some videos with people who play far better than I do on the newest iteration of this instrument. So bear with me for this video. This instrument is for sale. There are much better pictures of it on the website, and along with pricing and how to get it. Okay, so a bit of sound. As you can hear, there's plenty of sustain. There is actually less sustain than there was in some earlier iterations because I have found that excessive sustain creates a certain sort of chaos in the sound of an instrument, because you play a string and you play its partner, and at some point, as you continue, these overlapping frequencies caused by sustain can create a somewhat unpleasant sound. So the sustain, and of course you can limit sustain with how you play an instrument. You can mute a string. But I have found there's a nice balance point between too much sustain and not enough. Another thing I've noticed about these instruments, and this is true of our carbon fiber violins as well, of which we've made a whole bunch, is that, and for reasons I don't fully understand, but as opposed to a wooden instrument, they tend to hold more volume as you go up the fingerboard. So I am attempting to use more or less the same amount of pressure with my thumb here, which is sort of nice. Yeah. Barring is not my thing. The other thing about the instrument is that it survives being overdriven. And what I mean by that is if you play the instrument softly and then you play it loudly, it tends to become louder without distorting. And that is something that's important to me. playing a uke, you're chording a uke, you're accompanying some singing, and you want to be heard on the uke, along with other ukes and voices, the fact that you can play this fairly hard, and yet maintain good string separation and avoid distortion, I think is a good thing. So I'm going to attempt one more. Never come up with an ending for that, did he? So there you have it. Again, more videos coming soon, probably of the next brand new. I have a dog going crazy down below here trying to catch a fly. So if the with competent players. But if you're interested in purchasing this instrument, again, it's available. I recommend it without hesitation. One last quick note. I have put on the surfaces of this instrument a matte, or actually not matte, a satin finish. And I really like the look of it. The original instruments were done with a gloss finish. Gloss finishes on carbon fiber, hand-laid carbon fiber, are kind of a pain in the neck for reasons that I won't go into here, and a lot of work. And so I concluded it was better to keep the price of the instrument in a reasonable range and use a less fussy finish, and yet a finish that is equally protective. And so that's what I've done. And once I did it, once I convinced myself that was the way to go, I like it better now than I do the gloss finish. Okay, thanks for watching. I know that was a little on the long side. Thanks for your patience if you've made it this far. Bye.